I never thought a random Tuesday evening could turn into something I'd replay in my head for days, but here we are. So I'm sitting on my couch, aimlessly scrolling through TikTok like I usually do after work, when my phone buzzes with a message from Ethan. Ethan's my coworker and, honestly, the last person I was expecting to text me a challenge video. We work together at this small digital marketing firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, mostly spreadsheets, endless emails, and way too many Zoom calls. Ethan's the kind of guy who's got this easy charm, the kind that makes you smile without realizing it. He's tall, a little scruffy, with these bright eyes that seem like they're always plotting something fun. And I'd be lying if I said I haven't caught myself wondering what it'd be like to hang out outside of the office. Anyway, Ethan sends me this TikTok video of some goofy couples challenge. It's called the Try It On Me thing or something like that. The gist is, one person wears something ridiculous the other picks out, and then they try to pull it off with confidence. The whole vibe is goofy and lighthearted, with these quick cuts and playful music. His message simply says, "Think you could try this on me? Bet you won't." Now, I'm not the most daring guy, especially when it comes to stuff like this, but the way he phrased it felt like a dare wrapped in a smile. I tossed back a quick, "Depends what it is," expecting him to send some lame outfit or something awkward. Instead, he shoots back, "Trust me, it's better in person." This is where the day takes a turn from ordinary to something I couldn't have guessed. I look around my tiny apartment, thinking about how wild it'd be to actually show up at his place and do some dumb TikTok challenge. But there's this pull, like maybe this is the kind of spontaneous moment I didn't know I needed. So I text back, "All right, your place in 20? He replies almost immediately, "See you soon." And just like that, the quiet, normal evening I was expecting feels like it's about to spiral into something way more interesting. I grab my jacket, the air outside already chilly, and I can't help but wonder what I'm really walking into. Is this just some silly joke, or is Ethan trying to tell me something without saying it outright? Whatever it is, I'm already halfway out the door, and honestly, I don't really want to stop. I didn't know what I was expecting when I got to Ethan's place. Mostly, I just hoped it wouldn't be too weird or awkward. His apartment was just a few blocks from the office, tucked into one of those old brick buildings that somehow keeps its charm despite the city's constant rush. The door was already cracked open when I got there, and I could hear some upbeat music playing low in the background. "Hey," Ethan said, stepping out into the hallway with this grin that felt like it had something mischievous behind it. "You made it." "Yeah, wouldn't let you win that easily," I joked, but honestly I was already feeling a little nervous. We'd always had a good vibe at work, but this felt different, more personal. He led me inside, and the place was exactly what you'd expect from a guy who works in marketing, but also clearly spends way too much time on TikTok. There were posters on the walls, a few plants near the windows, and a coffee table littered with those little snack bags that somehow were never quite empty. "So here's the deal," Ethan said, dropping his voice to this playful whisper like he was about to spill a secret. "This challenge isn't just about costumes or whatever. It's about trust and how well you can, I don't know, really get into someone else's shoes. Or, in this case, clothes." I raised an eyebrow, trying to figure out if he was messing with me or if this was some kind of weird psychology experiment. He pulled out a small duffel bag from the couch and set it on the floor between us. "You want to see the options?" he asked with that grin again. I nodded and bent down to peek inside. There were all kinds of ridiculous things. Oversized sweaters, flashy hats, this neon pink jacket that looked like it belonged in an 80s workout video. But mixed in with the goofy stuff, I spotted something weirdly familiar. One of Ethan's crisp button-down shirts, neatly folded. "Okay, so here's the catch," he said. "You gotta pick something from the bag and try it on me. Like, honestly, wear it around like you would if it was your own style, and then I'll do the same for you." I blinked. "You want me to pick something to dress you in?" "Exactly. And then we switch. And we film it for TikTok because, why not?" He shrugged like it was no big deal, but there was something else in his eyes. Like maybe this was more than just a silly game. I swallowed, feeling this weird mix of excitement and something else. Something like hope, or maybe the first flicker of something more. "All right," I said, "but you better not chicken out." Ethan laughed, and it felt like the kind of laugh that's shared between people who get each other without needing to explain too much. I took a deep breath and grabbed the pink jacket, the one that looked the most ridiculous but also kind of fun in a weird way. "You're gonna look ridiculous," I warned him, but I was already imagining how his face would light up when he tried it on. "Bring it on," he said. We headed into his bedroom, which was bigger than I expected, with a full-length mirror on one wall and a few clothes racks that looked way too organized for someone my age. I handed him the jacket, and he slipped it on like it was nothing. The neon color clashed wildly with his usual style, but somehow it made him look more alive? More open? I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I felt this sudden urge to reach out and touch the sleeve, just to be sure this was real. He struck a pose like he knew I was watching, and I caught myself smiling way too much. "Okay, your turn," he said, pulling out a blue flannel shirt and tossing it at me. I caught it and looked down. This was one of those shirts you wear when you want to look casual, but still kind of put together. Not really my style, but not terrible either. I changed into it quickly and came back out, feeling self-conscious but also weirdly proud. Ethan whistled. "Not bad, man. You pull off the lumberjack look." We laughed, and for a moment the room felt smaller, like the world had shrunk to just the two of us playing dress-up and forgetting the usual rules. Then Ethan pulled out his phone and started filming us, giving me a little grin that made my heart skip. "Ready for round 2? He asked. I nodded, suddenly daring myself to be braver than I ever had. The next outfit he picked was this old college sweatshirt that looked way too big on him, and when I put it on, something shifted. It was like stepping into a different version of myself, a softer, less guarded one. We kept going, trading clothes and teasing each other, the awkwardness melting away with every laugh and every ridiculous pose. And then, somewhere between the oversized hoodie and the goofy hats, I caught him looking at me differently, like he was seeing me in a new light, and maybe I was doing the same for him. When the music died down and the last clip was shot, we just stood there, caught in this quiet moment that felt heavier than all the jokes and silly clothes. I cleared my throat. "So, what now?" Ethan smiled, that same mischievous grin, but softer this time. "Now, you tell me if you want to try the real challenge." I blinked, heart pounding. "What's the real challenge?" He leaned in, voice low. "Admit that you've been wanting to do this all along." And just like that, the TikTok challenge wasn't about silly outfits anymore. It was about something way more real and way scarier because, yeah, I had been wanting this. I just never thought he'd be the one to make it happen. My heart was pounding so hard, I could probably hear it over the quiet music still humming from his speakers. I tried to keep my voice steady, but I'm pretty sure it came out shakier than I wanted. "You mean that real challenge?" He nodded, eyes glued to mine like this was the most important moment we'd ever shared. "Yeah, the one where you stop pretending it's just a joke and tell me what you're really thinking." For a split second, I wanted to laugh it off, say something clever, and bail. But then I caught myself. Caught the way his gaze didn't waver, how his whole body seemed to be leaning in even though neither of us had moved an inch. So I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "Honestly, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a total idiot." Ethan gave me this encouraging smile, like he didn't care if I stumbled over my words. "Try me." That was probably the moment I realized I was more scared of losing what we had than I was of telling him the truth. So I took a breath and just went for it. "I've been thinking about you. More than I should, probably. And maybe I've wanted this, whatever this is, for a while now. But I didn't know if you felt the same." The way he smiled after I said that, it felt like sunlight breaking through a cloudy day. "You're not an idiot," he said softly. "And yeah, I've been thinking about you too. I guess I was kind of hoping you'd say something." I almost laughed at how perfectly awkward that was. Two grown adults, both too stubborn to say what was obvious. But the tension in the room was gone now, replaced with this warm, easy feeling that settled between us. Ethan took a step closer, his hand reaching out just enough to brush against mine. "So, what now?" I looked down at our hands, then back up at his face, feeling this sudden urge to close the distance completely. "I think we finished the challenge," I said, "but maybe this time It's less about clothes and more about us." He grinned like that was the best idea he'd heard all day. Deal. We ended up sitting on the couch, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Work, music, the dumb stuff we liked on TikTok, and the stuff we'd never said out loud before. At some point, the night got quiet, and I could feel the weight of the moment again. Ethan turned toward me slowly. "Can I kiss you?" I nodded before I even realized I was doing it. And that kiss, unexpected but perfect, was the kind of thing you don't forget. It wasn't flashy or frantic. It was simple and honest, like finally connecting all these dots you didn't even know existed. We pulled back, just enough to look at each other, and I felt a smile spreading across my face. "So, should we make this TikTok go viral or keep it just our thing?" He laughed, that same easy laugh that had been drawing me in since day one. "Definitely keep it our thing. But maybe, next time, you pick the challenge." "Deal," I said. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see what came next. After that night, things changed between us, but not in some dramatic, movie-style way where the world flips upside down. It was quieter, subtler, like finally letting a breath out you didn't realize you'd been holding. We still worked side by side, traded jokes over Slack, and made fun of the same terrible TV shows. But now there was this easy closeness, a kind of knowing that didn't need words. I kept thinking about that pink jacket and the ridiculous hats, and how funny it was that a silly TikTok challenge had turned into the start of whatever this was. Ethan and I started hanging out outside of work more, grabbing coffee or hitting up these little dive bars that felt way more honest than the usual crowded places downtown. One Friday night, a week or so later, we met up at this place near the river. The city lights flickered on the water, and the air was sharp but not too cold. We grabbed 2 beers, and I realized I was actually nervous, which was ridiculous because we'd already kissed, but here I was, twisting the bottle cap like it was some kind of lifeline. Ethan caught the nervous twitch and smirked. "You're being weird." "Yeah, you don't get nervous?" He shrugged, taking a slow sip. "Only when I'm about to do something stupid. Like confessing that I've been crushing on you for months." I laughed, a mix of relief and disbelief, because here it was, the words I'd been scared to say finally out in the open, but coming from him instead of me. "So," I said, feeling the warmth of the beer and the night settle in, "are you trying to tell me something?" He shrugged again, but this time there was a softness in his eyes that made me believe it. "Maybe. I want to see where this goes. No pressure, just us." That was enough for me. I reached across the table and covered his hand with mine. "Yeah, me too." It wasn't fireworks or heart-stopping moments. It was just 2 people figuring things out, one step at a time. Over the next few weeks, we settled into a rhythm that felt like home. We made bad TikTok videos, cooked meals that were mostly burnt but full of laughter, and started opening up about the kind of stuff you only share when you know someone's gonna stick around. One afternoon, Ethan invited me over to help him with this project he was working on. I showed up with a 6-pack and a stack of takeout because I figured, hey, if I'm going to be stuck assembling some weird marketing campaign, I might as well make it as painless as possible. We ended up sprawled on the floor surrounded by papers and sticky notes, and at some point the conversation drifted to favorite childhood memories. Ethan told me about summers at his grandma's cabin, fishing off the dock and sneaking marshmallows by the campfire. I shared my stories about growing up with 2 older sisters who ruled the house like queens. It was in those small moments, when the work paused and the world outside faded, that I realized I wasn't just attracted to Ethan's smile or his quick wit. I liked the way he listened, the way he made space for me to be myself, even when I was awkward or uncertain. One evening, a few days later, we found ourselves on his couch again, this time without costumes or cameras, just the soft light of his living room lamp and the quiet hum of the city outside. I was scrolling through my phone when Ethan reached over and turned it off. "Pay attention to me," he said, his voice low but playful. I looked up and saw the way he was watching me, the kind of look that made you stop and think, Yeah, this matters. I leaned in, letting the moment stretch, feeling the warmth of him next to me. And then, without thinking too much about it, I kissed him again. This time slower, more certain. When we pulled apart, Ethan smiled like he'd been holding back a secret happiness. "So," he said, "think we should tackle another challenge? Maybe one where we don't have to change clothes, but just be ourselves?" I laughed because, honestly, after all the layers we'd already shed, that felt like the most terrifying and exciting challenge yet. "Yeah," I said, feeling a calm that surprised me. "Let's do it." And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't worried about how it would end. Because sometimes the best stories don't have perfect beginnings or endings. They just have the moments in between. The days after that felt like we were walking on this strange new path together, one where everything was familiar but also different. Like seeing your favorite movie for the first time, but knowing all the spoilers. We didn't rush anything, which was probably the best part. It was the kind of thing that sneaks up on you in quiet moments. A brush of hands on the way to the coffee machine. A shared playlist that slowly became our soundtrack. Or those long, lazy Sunday mornings where the only plan was to see who could make the worst pancake. One Thursday, Ethan texted me from work. "Lunch break challenge?" I was sitting at my desk, drowning in emails when that message popped up, and I almost didn't respond. But something about the way he worded it made me grin, so I shot back, "What kind of challenge?" "Meet me in the lobby in 10. Trust me." Okay, I was curious. And maybe a little excited. 10 minutes later, I found him waiting with a huge grin and this ridiculous pair of sunglasses that looked like they belonged in a sci-fi movie. Before I could say anything, he held out his hand. "Come on, let's make this day interesting." We walked out into the brisk autumn air and headed toward this tiny park a few blocks away. The place was mostly empty, except for a couple of joggers and a kid chasing a balloon. Ethan pulled a deck of cards from his jacket pocket and flopped down on a bench. "Uno tournament?" I guessed. "Close," he said, shuffling the deck with an exaggerated flair. "But the loser has to do something embarrassing." "Public karaoke, maybe?" I laughed, feeling that old nervous thrill bubble up. "You're on." We played a couple of rounds, teasing each other mercilessly. Every time I almost won, Ethan pulled some sneaky move. And every time he got close, I threw out a wild card that made him groan. Eventually, it was his turn to lose, and as much as he protested, he had to pull out his phone and start scrolling through the karaoke app. "All right," he said, mock serious. "You get to pick the song." I thought about it for a second, then grinned. "How about something classic? Like, I Want It That Way by Backstreet Boys." He groaned again but hit play. Then, right there on the park bench, with no audience except a very confused dog and me, Ethan started belting out the worst but best rendition of 90s boy band pop I'd ever heard. I was laughing so hard I nearly fell off my seat, and when he finished, he gave me this triumphant look like he'd just won a Grammy. "Your turn," he said, handing me the phone. I'm not exactly a singer, but I figured, what the hell? I picked something ridiculous. A Disney song from my childhood that I knew would make him crack up. Halfway through, Ethan was leaning against a tree, holding his stomach from laughing so hard. When the song ended, he looked at me like I was the most ridiculous person on the planet, and I kind of was. But that moment felt so damn perfect, it didn't matter. We sat there for a while after, just catching our breath and watching the leaves fall. Then Ethan turned toward me, his voice softer this time. "You know, I like this. Us. All of it." I nodded, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. "Me too." Then, without thinking, I reached out and took his hand. It was the kind of simple, quiet touch that said more than words ever could. He squeezed my hand gently. "So what's the next challenge?" I smiled, feeling bold. "Maybe just figuring out how to do this. Us, without overthinking it." His smile was slow, genuine. Sounds like the best challenge yet. That night, I lay in bed, replaying the day over and over. The laughter, the music, the way Ethan's hand felt in mine. It all felt like the start of something real. Not perfect, but real. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Things settled into a rhythm after that day in the park, but I could tell there was something beneath the surface, something neither of us was quite ready to say out loud. It was subtle, like the way he'd glance at me when he thought I wasn't looking. or the way his texts started ending with little hearts instead of just a casual K. I wasn't complaining. Actually, it was kind of nice having this unspoken tension that buzzed quietly between us. One Friday evening, a few weeks later, Ethan invited me over for dinner. I wasn't sure what to expect. Some mealtime ritual? Another silly challenge? But when I got there, the lights were low, and the smell of something cooking filled the air. He had this nervous energy, the kind someone gets right before they want to say something important. He greeted me with a smile that didn't quite meet his eyes. "Hey, glad you made it." I shrugged off my coat, trying to play it cool. Wouldn't miss it. We sat at his small kitchen table, surrounded by the clutter of takeout boxes and half-empty bottles of wine. Ethan reached into a bag and pulled out 2 plates of pasta. I'm no chef, but I figured we could try something new. As we ate, the conversation was light, but I sensed he was waiting for the right moment. Finally, he put down his fork and looked at me seriously. "So, about us." My stomach tightened. I'd been thinking about that too, but hearing it out loud made everything feel suddenly real. "I don't want to rush it," he said, "but I also don't want to pretend like this. Whatever it is, isn't happening." I nodded. "I get that. I've been scared of messing things up, honestly, but I don't want to lose what we have either." There was a beat where we just looked at each other, the air thick with all the words we weren't saying. Then Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. His touch was steady, reassuring. "I like you," he said simply, "more than just a friend or a coworker. I don't know what comes next, but I want to find out with you." That hit me harder than I expected. I squeezed his hand back, feeling this rush of relief and something like hope. "I like you too," I admitted, more than I thought I would. We spent the rest of the night talking, really talking, about what we wanted, what scared us, how we saw the future. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide the part of me that wanted Ethan. In the weeks that followed, we took small steps. Holding hands on the subway, sharing playlists, stealing kisses in quiet corners of the office. Every moment felt like a discovery, like learning a new language made just for us. One afternoon, we found ourselves back in that same park where the Uno tournament happened. The leaves had turned golden, and the air was crisp. Ethan pulled me close, his breath fogging in the cool air. "You know," he said, "I'm glad I dared you to try that TikTok challenge." I laughed. "Me too, it changed everything." He smiled, a little shy but full of warmth. "So what's our next challenge?" I thought about it and realized maybe the real challenge wasn't the silly games or the viral videos. "It's just us," I said, "figuring out how to be together, no matter what." He nodded, resting his forehead against mine. "Yeah," he said softly, "that's the best challenge there is." The days grew shorter, the air a little crisper, and somehow that park became our spot, the unofficial headquarters of whatever was unfolding between us. It was funny how a place that once just hosted a goofy Uno tournament now held all these tiny moments that were starting to mean everything. One Saturday afternoon, I found myself standing outside Ethan's apartment, a little nervous for the first time in weeks. He'd invited me over for what he called a surprise, which was vague enough to keep my imagination running wild. The door swung open before I could even knock. "Hey." Ethan greeted me, his smile a little crooked and eyes sparkling with that familiar mischievousness. "Hey," I said, stepping inside. The apartment was transformed. Fairy lights hung across the ceiling, casting a warm glow, and on the coffee table was a spread of snacks and a small projector set up, aimed at the blank wall. "Movie night?" I guessed, already feeling my nerves settle. "Exactly. But not just any movie night," Ethan said, leading me to the couch. "I made a playlist of all the cheesy rom-coms you secretly love." I laughed, both surprised and touched. "You remembered," he shrugged, sitting close enough that our shoulders touched. I pay attention. We settled in, the room dark except for the flickering images on the wall. The first movie started, and I caught Ethan sneaking glances at me, his smile soft. Halfway through, he turned toward me. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded, heart skipping. "Are you happy? Like, with us?" The question caught me off guard, but I didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I am. It feels real and good." Even when I get scared or confused, I don't want to walk away. His hand found mine in the dark, squeezing gently. Me too. The movie ended, but neither of us moved. The quiet between us was comfortable, filled with 100 unspoken words. A few days later, work was the usual grind, but there was a new energy between us. We shared secret smiles across meetings and sent quick messages that made my heart race. One afternoon, Ethan pulled me aside by the coffee machine. "So," he said with a grin, "I was thinking maybe we should tell some people. Not keep this a secret forever." I froze for a second, the idea both terrifying and freeing. "You really want to?" "Yeah," he said, eyes serious. "I want us to be open about this. No more hiding." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Okay, let's do it." That evening, we sat side by side, drafting a message to our small circle at work. It was clumsy and honest, exactly like us. The next day, the reactions were mostly positive. Supportive messages, surprised but happy faces. There were a few awkward moments, sure, but nothing that felt like a deal breaker. Walking home with Ethan, hand in hand, I felt lighter than I had in months. "See?" he said, nudging me. "The world didn't end." I laughed. "Nope. It just got a little better." As the city lights flickered around us, I realized that the real challenge wasn't some silly TikTok game or viral video. It was this: being brave enough to be ourselves, together, in a world that can be complicated but also full of unexpected joy. And honestly, I'm ready for whatever comes next. The weeks after we went public felt like a gentle unfolding, like the first slow bloom of spring after a long winter. There were moments of awkwardness. Sure, people adjusting, questions asked with genuine curiosity or a bit of surprise. But mostly there was a new kind of ease between Ethan and me, like we'd finally stepped out of the shadows and into a space where we could just be. One quiet Sunday afternoon, we found ourselves back at that park bench where it had all started. The leaves had turned a soft amber, drifting lazily around us as we sat side by side, our hands naturally intertwined. No words were necessary. The comfort of each other's presence said everything. Ethan broke the silence with a small smile. Funny how a dumb TikTok challenge turned into all this. I laughed softly. Yeah, who knew that trying on ridiculous clothes would lead to, well, this? He squeezed my hand gently. I'm glad we took the chance, even when it felt scary. Me too. Because it wasn't just about the jokes or the outfits or the viral videos anymore. It was about trust, about showing up for someone and letting them see you, all the messy, imperfect parts included. I looked over at him, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the autumn sun. I'm glad we're doing this together, no matter what comes next. He smiled, eyes steady and full of something I hadn't seen before. Hope, maybe, or certainty. Me too. In that moment, I realized that sometimes the best kind of love isn't a grand spectacle or a perfect story. It's found in the quiet, everyday moments, the laughter over silly games, the honest conversations late at night, the simple act of holding someone's hand when the world feels uncertain. And as the city hummed softly around us, I knew we were exactly where we were supposed to be. Together. Real. Ready for whatever came next. Because sometimes the real challenge is just choosing to be brave enough to love and to be loved in return.